This happened to one of the teachers that happened to be a math teacher. It happened sometime in 2015. My math teacher at the time, will call her Donna for privacy reasons. Donna was a really good math teacher, and she was very excellent in high school. In other words, a lot of people really liked her because she makes math fun. You know, make it not sure it's boring. She was a very laid back teacher. Sometimes she can be a little harsh at once in a while, but most of the time she was pretty calm and collective. She happened to have been going through a divorce like 2 years back, but this was in 2016 or 2015. I can't remember which Valentine's Day this happened on, but it was either 2015 or 2016. Whatever the case may be. Now, this was sometime around the time where before everyone had school off for winter break. Not really winter break, but spring break. Now, it was around Valentine's Day, and this was when something really messed up began happening to Donna. It's not really the type of story to make you jump out of your seats, or anything like that, but it's definitely something that really messed her up at big time. Now, since it was on Valentine's Day was on the weekend, Donna didn't really know what she wanted to do. She couldn't really figure out of what to do on that day. So, although about that, to be completely fair, Donna wasn't at work. She was even thinking about her husband or ex-husband. It's unfortunate because she used to go out dates with him on Valentine's Day. It happened to be the best thing anyone's ever had. Now, during Valentine's Day, Donna was driving home when she all of a sudden saw a balloon that said Happy Valentine's Day on it. Now, she thought at first that maybe one of her friends left it there, so she went up to the door to see it. The handwriting of the letter said, "Hello, Donna. I love you so much." This honestly kind of freaked her out a little bit. Seeing the handwriting was not familiar from anyone that she knew. She thought that maybe her neighbor was doing this for a prank, but he said it wasn't from him. Donna ended up figuring out exactly. Someone was actually been stalking her. How does she know this? Well, let's just say that she met this guy on a dating app on OkCupid. Eventually, she regret using it because there was this one guy who pretended to be someone that she liked, only to almost got kidnapped that day. Now, as of this, Donna kept saying a lot of mysterious Valentine's Day gifts throughout her house. And what she found out was that someone must have found her spare key and entered her house to put all these Valentine's Day gifts. One of them was like a present, and she really didn't want to open it. But her gut said otherwise. She opened up the gift to reveal that there was a knife and a note that said, "You're going to make a great adventure." And Donna obviously reported to the authorities as well as the Valentine's Day gifts. But sadly though, nothing ever became of it. For some better context, this actually happened to a science teacher who happened to be one of my bestest teachers I've ever met. Let's call him Marty. This happened to Marty sometime on Valentine's Day, sometime in the 1980s. And this happened when he was living in Florida. He was a kid at the time, maybe around 8 or 9. At the time of this story, before the internet and before he moved to Canada in the 90s, he was living in Florida. Now obviously they didn't really have much snow. Maybe if they were lucky they get very little, but not a much. Marty really enjoyed going to the train tracks with his friends. He met this one cute girl that he really liked, and he's been always seeing her outside of his classroom. He must have thought that she might have been someone from the school, but no one ever seen her or even know her. That was the funniest thing, as nobody actually really mentioned it. There was an abandoned, or what seemed to be an old train track that a train ran through many years ago, and it was by the bridge passed through some wilderness. Now, however, at the time of the story, Marty decided to go there, as he wanted to meet this girl, so he eventually got to know her from the schoolyard. She introduced herself as Tracy, and she seemed to be a very nice girl. Marty took down Tracy's number and even asked her to see him on Valentine's Day by the train track where he and his buddies used to play in. Now, the girl nodded and she took off, without saying a word. Honestly, this confused Marty as to why she took off like that. Was she nervous about asking him or something? Questions were going through Marty's head, but he decided to brush it off, seeing that there was really no point on holding any grudges. On Valentine's Day, he took out some Valentine's Day cards and some chocolates that his parents had gave him. Of course, he kept some for himself and some to give to his little girlfriend. Or at least his Valentine, as he was a kid. He wanted to do something special for her. He'd go to the train tracks on Valentine's Day, and I can't even remember if it was sometime when he was in school, after school, or it was on the weekend. Marty waited by the train tracks for a little while. As he waited, and waited for what seemed to be a while, this girl, Tracy, never showed up. He honestly waited for a bit while sitting by the train tracks. Of course, no train has been by there in years, but there was no reason as to why she didn't appear. Could have she been sick? Maybe she got lost? Who really knows? Marty decided to go find out about this Tracy person, although he decided to wait a little longer. Unfortunately, with no luck on her return, he headed back home and told his parents about it. He even waited for Tracy to return to school, but there was no sign of this Tracy girl. Although he went to the train track to see if she would be there the next day, and it was the day after Valentine's Day when he showed up. But then on the train track, what shocked him was there was Tracy. She was laughing and smiling as she waved at him. She then took off running down the train tracks, so Marty went after her. But she jumped out of the bridge. When he looked to see if she fell in the water, there was no trace of Tracy. I have no idea what Marty experienced that day was paranormal or was some hallucination. He eventually forgot about Tracy, and he's never been to that train track since. Of course, before he moved to Canada, he went to visit there Valentine's Day many years later, and he eventually still hadn't seen her. He still wonders to this very day, could Tracy be some hallucination or something paranormal? That is something that Marty had no idea. And still to this day, I think that Valentine's Day was very shaking on his nerve. This happened to me on Valentine's Day in 2019, and this was at least my last Valentine's anniversary day I'd be spending with my ex-boyfriend. His name is T, and he seemed to be a pretty decent guy. Now, at the time of this story, this was before I moved. At the time of this story, it was our anniversary, and when I got home from work, I ended up showered and getting ready because we were going to go out for dinner on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was the best place for love to celebrate. A lot of couples do go out on Valentine's Day, so my boyfriend T and I at the time, my ex-boyfriend T at the time, was my boyfriend. We decided to go out to eat. It was Boston Pizza, and this Valentine's Day was when the day things got weird. My mom dropped me and T off at the Boston Pizza place, and we headed inside. As we headed inside, I looked over where the bar was to see a really weird man. I didn't even know what he looked like because he had his back turned to us, but all I know is that he could look like he's some homeless guy. Whatever he was just kept looking at me every few seconds for some reason. I still was kind of confused as to why he was looking at me in that way. I decided to try to ignore him and continue to do mind my own business. Me and T eventually got to a table, and we decided to start ordering, and we ordered drinks, and then we ordered what pizza we wanted. Things seemed to go very well, and nothing really out of the ordinary seemed to be happening. Eventually, this one man walked up to me as soon as we placed our order for the pizzas of what we wanted. This guy, he was on his phone, so he obviously didn't even look up. Of course, this man looked very old and scruffy. He said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here for?" "We're just celebrating our anniversary," I replied dryly. He obviously looked a little upset as to why I responded with the dry response, but he ended up deciding to let it go, thinking maybe I was having a bad day, assuming. I ended up not really caring much about what he had to say, so it honestly was just no big surprise. Obviously, I was getting really uncomfortable with this dude. This man eventually walked back to the seats, and me and my boyfriend, my ex-T, tried to start not having any conversation with him. We eventually tried to ignore him as best as we could, but when it came to us being picked up, however, that was something that we really had no idea what was going to happen. Eventually, we paid for our dinner, and when we left the restaurant after at least an hour or two of being there, we eventually saw this man again, and he said, "Oh, I actually lost my wallet. Can you help me find it? It should be in the van." I looked over at the van to see that there was at least 2 to 3 people inside. Was this man going to kidnap me, rob me, or what was he going to do? This honestly freaked me and T out, but eventually his mom came and picked us up. As soon as the man saw that we weren't alone anymore, he ended up going back to his truck or van, and drove off. I honestly wanted to call the cops and reported it to the authorities, but as soon as he was gone, I couldn't even get down the license plate number of, what this guy was doing, why he was here, and etc. I still don't know to this day what could have happened if we ended up following him to that van. I still look back at this now, although I'm dating someone new now, but I still think about this Valentine's Day, knowing that we would have been kidnapped if we even followed him into that van.